The rule, people, Miss Gravity can stay life still ends. The sun is two things at once, mass and furnace. Most people picture it as a glowing sphere because the glow is what you experience. But the planets don't care about glow, they care about mass. Change the mass and orbits go unstable. Keep the mass roughly the same and orbits can remain eerily intact even while the surface becomes uninhabitable. That split is the trap. It's why the most counterintuitive swap, replacing the sun with a black hole of the same mass, doesn't fling Earth away or pull it inward. It just deletes the light. The geometry holds. The biology fails. A lot of cosmic horror is like that structure remains, meaning collapses. Number 10. Proxima Centauri, the star that turns Earth into an exhibit. At first, Proxima Centauri sounds comforting. A star is a star. If you have a star at the center, you still have a sunrise. But Proxima is a red dwarf, smaller, cooler, and far dimmer than the Sunday. You can keep your orbit at the same distance and still lose the energy budget that makes Earth Earth. On day one, the visual shock is almost insulting. The new sun isn't a disk you can squint at and look away from. It becomes a small crimson point, like someone took the authority out of daylight and replaced it with a pilot light. Shadows soften, colors flatten. The world looks tired. And then the accounting begins. Within days, the planet starts bleeding heat into space faster than it can replace it. Within weeks, the average temperature falls so low that winter stops being a season and becomes a permanent state. Water doesn't just freeze on the surface, it freezes down through the entire column. Oceans stop being dynamic systems and become solid geography. Then, the atmosphere begins to behave like a collection of substances instead of a single thing called air. Nitrogen and oxygen, normally invisible, normally free, start condensing. Not in a cinematic way. In a quiet way, frost, where frost shouldn't be crystals forming out of the sky like the planet is exhaling itself onto the ground. The world becomes a sealed museum display, continents under a shell of ice, air turned into layers, clouds gone. The human story in this version isn't dramatic heroism. It's tree edge. The last places that might hold life aren't on the surface. They're underneath it, deep geothermal pockets where the Earth still has internal heat, where chemistry can still occur without sunlight. That kind of survival is possible in theory, but it's not a civilization. It's a bunker civilization, a species that no longer lives on its own planet just inside it. Here's the rabbit hole. While Earth dies, the outer solar system can wake up. A colder central star moves the habitable zone inward, but it also changes how cold worlds behave. Moons like Europa and Enceladus, currently locked under thick ice, could receive enough altered energy input to shift their internal balances. Not into paradise, into potential. Into liquid water becomes less impossible. If the sky turns red and the oceans turn solid, is the future on Earth, or on the moons that used to be dead? And if humans migrate outward to worlds that were never meant to host them, what happens to Earth in the collective memory? A frozen planet is easy to mythologize. The dead world becomes a story. The story becomes a justification. And eventually the descendants who never saw a blue sky start arguing about whether it ever existed. You don't need to erase history. You just need to make it unrepeatable. Number 9, Jupiter the Almost that turns into a slow execution. Replace the sun with Jupiter and you get the cruelest kind of apocalypse, the one that gives you time. Jupiter emits more energy than it receives because it's still contracting and radiating heat from its formation. It's a giant warm body in space, it glows in infrared, it's not nothing. So for a brief window, the sky holds a dim, ruddy disk. Not bright like the sun, more like an enormous bruise. At night, you can still see it as a presence. A low, persistent reminder that something is there. And that is the psychological torture of this swap. You can point to the sun. The brain sees a central object and expects warmth. The brain expects the rules of childhood to still apply. But Jupiter is not a furnace. It's a warm rock compared to a blast furnace. Temperatures begin to slide. Not instantly into negative 200 degrees Celsius like the red dwarf scenario might push, more gradually enough that people would argue, meanwhile, the planet keeps losing heat. Eventually, the growing season fails. Then the oceans start developing permanent ice. Then shipping collapses. Then infrastructure fails not because of a single catastrophic event, but because maintenance becomes impossible in a world whose air itself becomes hostile. A bunker society doesn't need hope. It needs supply chains. It needs spare parts. It needs replacement generations who understand complex systems they did not build. So you get a different kind of horror, not sudden death, but cultural amnesia. A child born underground can be taught what daylight was, but they cannot verify it, they cannot touch it, they cannot stand in it. And the human mind treats unverified things as fiction eventually. The last people who remember the sun become a kind of priest class, not because they want to be, but because they possess a sensory experience the next generations lack. Then the memory becomes myth. Then myth becomes politics. Then politics becomes violence. All because Jupiter isn't cold enough to kill you quickly. Number 8, Sirius, when the planet doesn't burn it, boils itself. Sirius is bright enough from Earth that ancient cultures treated it like a divine marker. Put Sirius where the sun sits and importance becomes a weapon. Sirius outputs far more energy than the Sunday, and Earth doesn't have a dial you can turn down. Push the input high enough and the destabilizing ones take over. The first week would feel like an extreme heat wave. The second week would feel like the heat wave that doesn't end. Then the oceans begin to supply the atmosphere with water vapor at a rate the planet has never experienced. Water vapor traps heat. Trapped heat increases evaporation. Evaporation increases vapor. This is the kind of loop that doesn't require malice. It requires physics. Once a runaway greenhouse condition locks in, Earth stops being a world with oceans and becomes a world that used to have them. And the true brutality of that transformation is that it deletes the evidence of the old planet. The ultraviolet output is stronger. Water molecules in the upper atmosphere get broken apart. Hydrogen escapes into space more easily. Oxygen reacts with surface materials. Over time, what remains isn't a drowned Earth, it's a dry Earth with scars. It's the difference between a murder scene and a crime scene that has been cleaned. In this scenario, if any life survives, it isn't because it adapted to heat. It's because it retreated into niches deep underground, deep ocean at first, until the ocean stops being stable, or into engineered habitats sealed against an atmosphere that becomes thick, hot, and chemically aggressive. If a planet can lose its oceans and keep orbiting like nothing happened, how many Earth-like worlds in the universe are simply in different chapters of the same story? How many are graves that look normal from far away? Number 7, White Dwarf, the Bright Lie. A white dwarf is a dead star core, roughly sun mass, squeezed into something closer to Earth size. It can look like a perfect replacement in the sky, an intense, sharp point of light. That's what makes it evil, because the brightness your eye perceives is not the same as the energy your planet receives. The temperature curve drops anyway. The oceans freeze anyway. The atmosphere condenses anyway. Earth becomes a hard, cold object circling a light that refuses to pay the heating bill. This is a psychological torture device built into astrophysics, a sky that visually insists you're safe while your world goes sterile. And then comes the rabbit hole. White dwarfs cool slowly over timescales that can be staggeringly long. An advanced civilization could, in theory, live closer to the white dwarf in tight orbits or habitats designed to sit at a distance where the energy flux is comfortable. That means the same object that kills Earth at 1 AU could sustain life for durations that dwarf the sun's remaining main sequence lifetime. At the wrong distance, it is immediate death. At the right distance, it is near eternal stability. Which raises a quietly uncomfortable question: what counts as a homeworld if the long-term future belongs to civilizations willing to abandon planets entirely and live as engineered systems around stellar remnants? The story stops being about Earth surviving. It becomes about what humans are willing to stop being. Number 6, Betelgeuse. When the sun stops being a place and becomes an environment. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant so large that if you placed it at the center, its outer layers would extend far beyond where Earth orbits now. It erases the category of planet for the inner solar system. Earth doesn't freeze or boil, it becomes immersed. The idea of day and night collapses because outside collapses. In certain regions, the inside of the star is not a wall, it's a gradient. The star becomes less like a solid thing and more like a layered hazard field. If surface is an illusion, if a star's boundary is just where it becomes opaque, then how many other boundaries humans treat as absolute are actually just thresholds of perception? Betelgeuse isn't just a bigger sundae, it's a lesson in how reality doesn't care about your categories. Number 5, Neutron star, the apocalypse you can barely see. A neutron star can contain more mass than the sun squeezed into a sphere the size of a city. A rotating magnetic field interacting with a conductive planet induces currents. Currents create heat. Heat accumulates from the inside out. It dies because it becomes part of a circuit. The planet's interior mantle, core conductive layers, becomes the place where energy is deposited. The sky's cruelty is that the neutron star itself could appear as a small point, a pinprick. A neutron star is the opposite, an object so compact it looks unimpressive while producing a global outcome. You can be destroyed by something you cannot properly perceive. Your brain never gets the satisfaction of matching threat to appearance. It never gets closure. It just has to accept that the universe can kill you with a dot. Number 4. Stellar mass black hole. The day the sun becomes an absence. The orbit remains. Then 8 minutes later, daylight ends. Not like dusk, not like eclipse, like a power outage that never comes back. Temperatures begin to fall, the oceans start freezing, weather becomes irrelevant because the engine that drives weather is dead. Eventually, the air itself begins to condense and settle. It's that Earth becomes an object still doing its math correctly, while everything living on it fails. If a black hole can replace the sun without altering the orbit, then stable solar system does not guarantee habitable solar system. The two are unrelated. How many worlds are out there perfectly stable, perfectly orderly, perfectly dead? Number 3. Magnetar, the place where chemistry starts losing. A magnetar is a neutron star turned up another order of magnitude in magnetic violence. At Earth-like distances, the magnetic field can still be catastrophically large relative to Earth's own. It's strong enough to induce currents to dump energy into planetary interiors to turn conductive bodies into heating elements. Under extreme magnetic fields, atomic structure becomes distorted. Chemical bonds don't behave normally. Matter stops obeying the quiet assumptions life relies on. This is where language starts failing because the threat isn't heat or radiation in the familiar sense. It's that the rules holding molecules together can be altered by environment. If life is chemistry and chemistry is a set of electromagnetic negotiations, then a magnetar is an environment where those negotiations become meaningless. The nightmare isn't dying. It's becoming a place where living is no longer a coherent physical process. Number 2. Quasar, when the disaster isn't local anymore. A quasar is a feeding supermassive black hole, an accretion disk converting infalling matter into radiation across the spectrum, including energies that strip atmospheres and sterilize surfaces at distances that make solar system scales. Look small. Put a quasar where the sun sits, and Earth isn't the main casualty. It's just nearby matter caught in an energy regime it cannot survive. The destruction becomes regional, potentially galactic scale across a meaningful radius depending on output, beaming, and environment. This is cosmic violence at a scale where planets are bookkeeping. Quasars don't attack. They exist. Number 1. Sagittarius A times the collapse of the map itself. If it appears where the sun was, the inner solar system isn't slowly cooled or slowly heated. It's dynamically shredded. Orbits become brief negotiations with an object that rewrites the local gravitational landscape. But the deeper catastrophe is not just local, it's systemic. A supermassive black hole moved into a dense region of matter is not dormant. It gets fed. Dust, gas, debris, everything begins spiraling in, forming an accretion disk emitting high-energy radiation.